Happy New Year, everybody. I hope whatever changes the new year brings you, most of them are positive. Unfortunately, around here, far too many changes are forced on us by our employer and the EEOC process. And those forced changes can cause a lot of emotional harm, which figures heavily into our non-pecuniary damages. So as that stuff is happening to you, and you're being forced to change in ways that you didn't choose, be sure to record that stuff in your journal. Doing that will serve you well later on in the damages phase of your process. Now, of course, some of the changes that we go through this year are going to be made by choice. That's the whole point of a New Year's resolution. My case started around this time of year, late December into early January. Right at the beginning of my process, Doug and I made a resolution together that turned out to be really important for our marriage. We knew that we were about to get hit with a load of stress that we couldn't predict or control. So we knew that we had to preserve our energy so we didn't burn out. Because if either one of us burned out, both of us were going to be in a world of hurt. We resolved to give the best of ourselves to each other, instead of squandering our energy trying to be nice to people like bosses, coworkers, and relative strangers, and then coming home at night and giving each other the leftovers. So rather than just taking whatever abuse my boss wanted to dole out and saying, "Thank you, may I please have another," I learned to respectfully call her out by asking polite, professional questions about whatever vile thing she was doing in email. Asking those questions allowed me to vent a lot of the frustrations that my boss was causing right back at her in a constructive way, because those emails also helped me document my case. And best of all, I didn't have to go home at night and vent those frustrations to Doug. So now let's get back to the unwelcome changes that I mentioned earlier and emotional harm. To illustrate how this works, I'm going to be talking about damage to our relationships, which is part of the emotional harm that we pretty much all have. Although what I'm going to say today really applies to emotional, non-pecuniary damages in general. To be able to get compensation for emotional harm, we have to show that the harm exists and was caused by the discrimination. So how do we do that? Testimony, both ours and our partners, goes a long way. And in that testimony, we want to talk about how all the illegal things our employer did to us changed us and profoundly affected our life, including our relationships. In Doug's testimony, there was one thing in particular he said that really drove home for me exactly how much the discrimination had changed me. He said he felt like NASA had taken away his beautiful and vivacious wife and replaced her with a hermit who was too afraid to open her own mail. It was the truth, and everyone in the room knew it because of the way he said it. I'll never forget it. Now, if your testimony and your partners are strong enough, you may not need any more evidence of the emotional harm that you suffered. In his decision, my judge said that he found mine and Doug's testimony were credible on the point of my emotional harm. But I also had letters from my therapist as backup, just in case. Now, a quick warning, employers aren't going to just take that lying down. They're going to be fishing for evidence that shows that whatever emotional harm we claim we experienced was already there before the discrimination. And the place they're going to go fishing for that is in our therapist's records. In discovery, they'll ask for copies of our official case file as well as our therapist's personal notes, if they can get them. My therapist had been around the block a few times, so he refused to give up his notes. Instead, he wrote a letter to NASA citing this case, where the court found that a therapist's personal notes are not discoverable. And in that same letter, he shared how he personally had seen me change as a result of what I told him was happening to me at work. Those are the kinds of things we need to prove emotional damages. While it's nice we can recover some compensation for those kinds of losses, in this particular process, it's impossible for us to recover enough compensation to make up for the loss of a really important personal relationship. Our non-pecuniary damages, which is where emotional harm figures in, are capped. So this new year, I encourage you guys to think about the year ahead and plan how you can mitigate some of the damages to your relationships. And that's why I shared the story that I did about Doug and me in the beginning of this video. Because it'd be a shame if you ended up winning your case, but in the process, losing a relationship that meant the world to you. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, take care and hang you.